So I've been thinking about a possible framework or something like a checklist that could actually be used to kind of assess how one is conveying themselves in life. Because obviously there are different aspects of life that we need to optimize for. And I think usually when one does not actually put it in some kind of framework, they actually lose themselves in some way. Now, the framework actually starts by laying out four different domains of life that one needs to actually optimize for. And those four domains are actually health, wealth, relationships, and spiritual life. And I think the importance of this framework is that it could actually be used on all different time spans, let's say. So you could use it as a daily checklist where you're kind of checking every day whether you actually improved on all those different four domains. And then you can use it on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and then annual basis, or whatever the case might be. So I think there's some kind of flexibility within this model that it could actually be used on all different levels of abstraction. And I also think there's something to be said with how people kind of implicitly think they're checking all those different four boxes when they're actually indeed checking only one box. So for example, if you see someone who's doing so well on the economic front or the wealth front, they kind of, it's not necessarily that they fool themselves, but they implicitly forget about the other domains because they think they're doing so well on that front that they don't need to do any other things on other fronts. But I think keeping those four domains in front of one's eyes, let's say as checklists for daily or weekly or monthly or annually even goals, is actually good to kind of not fool oneself, because obviously if we optimize for one of those domains, we can kind of think that it's leaky on all other domains, but that wouldn't be the case necessarily. And I think this is an important point to kind of bring home when it comes to this specific framework. The way I think about this framework is that it's not necessarily an exhaustive framework, meaning it doesn't actually cover all areas of life, but it does cover the important enough areas of life that you could actually improve every other domain, if that makes sense. So if you improve your health, wealth, relationships, and spiritual life, then any other domain outside of those, let's say for the sake of argument, could actually be improved through improving those four domains. And I also think the usefulness of this framework also comes in the sense that you could actually use it sociologically, where you could think about, let's say, an emerging technology. So let's say there is an emerging new technology. You could actually use this framework in the sense that you could ask the question, is this technology cumulatively improving those four domains when it comes to human beings as a whole? So, and then you could actually go and tap into all the different intricacies of that technology and how it's actually affecting those four domains. So I think it's a good starting point when it comes to even analyzing sociological, let's say, phenomena, such as technologies or even societies as a whole. And I also think there's something to be said with how this framework is not necessarily a new framework, let's say, because obviously all people know about those four domains and how important they are. But I think of this framework almost like a categorization of emphasis. So it's just emphasizing the right things in life, and then whatever is around those domains would eventually end up improving. And I think emphasis is usually undermined. So we usually kind of overappreciate novel things, and we think that something has to be new in order for it to kind of help us. But I think repackaging the already known information we have is actually even sometimes more useful than novel information per se. So I think of this framework as emphasizing the right things in life, let's say. Now, to set this point about emphasis aside, I think it's also good to kind of look at an example and see how it could be actually juxtaposed to this framework of ours. So there is a prophetic saying by the Islamic prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that touches base or is kind of a similar framework to the framework we're actually discussing. So there's a prophetic saying that goes, all humankind's or a man's actions or deeds after death cease to exist except for three, one of them being a ceaseless charity, some kind of wealth that could be propagated for the poor indefinitely in whatever format. And then the second would be some kind of a knowledge base that could be useful for humanity. And then the third would be some kind of a bloodline or descendants to keep that person in remembrance and in supplication. Now, I think this prophetic saying could actually be juxtaposed to our model in the sense that if you use those three things mentioned in the prophetic saying as seeds to be cultivated, let's say, then they could leak themselves into improving all different aspects of life. So, in order to keep some kind of a ceaseless charity, you have to create some kind of wealth. In order to have children or descendants to remember your name, you have to have some kind of a good relationship. And in order to have some kind of knowledge, you have to have good input or knowledge yourself. So, as soon as one optimizes for the seeds of those actions, then everything around them could actually end up improving. Even though the model is not necessarily exhaustive of all aspects of life, it could end up improving all other aspects of life implicitly, let's say. And I think this model of ours could actually be used in the same way where, yes, it's not everything there is to be those four domains, but if one actually optimizes or cultivates the seeds for those four domains, then they would end up improving all other, or being capable of improving all other different aspects of life, even if they were not, let's say, explicitly mentioned by this model or framework. Now, this actually brings us to the end of this video. If you actually benefited from this framework, let's say, or applying it to your life and using it as some kind of an objective, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I hope you actually find this beneficial, and see you next time.